Indeed, no better way to get your Friday off on the right note with some amazing music there from the Divine Band. They will be back with much more. But for now, time for the newspaper review here on Citizen TV's Power Breakfast Show. My name is Wahiga Mwaura, and helping me to take a look at these papers, I'm joined by various leaders. Let me introduce them to you now. Honorable Owen Baya, Member of Parliament, Kilifi North, welcome to the broadcast. Yeah. In addition, Honorable Ken Okoth, MP Kibra, welcome to the program as well.
Thank you, Wahiga.
Honorable Martha Wangare, Member of Parliament, Gilgil, very glad to have you here with us. Mheshimiwa.
Thank you.
And Honorable Irungu Kangata, Senator Muranga, welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
I'm sure each of you have had a chance to look at the papers, but for the benefit of our viewers, let me just briefly look at some of the headlines. We start with the Daily Nation. The headline reads as follows: Jubilee split over move to oust Maraga. Nyeri Member of Parliament files petition to kick out Chief Justice for presiding over the nullification of the August 8th presidential poll, but Uhuru's party distances itself from the move, joining a group of lawmakers who describe it as ill-timed and demands its retraction. And this headline informs our news poll question of the day, which we can have on the screen right now, where we are asking you, is Honorable Wambugu working alone, or is he part of a wider scheme to undermine the Supreme Court? Talk to us on 22422 and talk to us on our social media platforms as well. Let me repeat that again. Is the Nyeri Member of Parliament working alone? Is he a lone ranger? And we should be having that question on the screen. Or is he part of a wider scheme to undermine the Supreme Court? 22422, and talk to us as well on all our social media platforms at Citizen TV Kenya. And just something I want to mention before I allow each of my panelists to comment on this. Still part of the front page of the Daily Nation, Nyeri Town Member of Parliament Gunjiri Wambugu rarely makes miscalculated moves. So when he walked to the registry of the Supreme Court yesterday to file a petition against the Chief Justice, the whole country sat up to watch. But could he have made a wrong move this time? His Jubilee party, through their spokesman Raphael Tuju, said it had nothing to do with the petition, and soon a host of other members of Parliament distanced themselves from it. Let me start with you, Honorable Baya. You've had a chance to listen to Honorable Wambugu yesterday. You've had a chance maybe even to look at the petition as well. Your take, is he working alone? Is this just his own move to make headlines, or is it part of a wider scheme?
No, I believe this is part of a wider scheme, having taken coup from what the president said that they would fix the judiciary. I think this is just following on that line, and I think Wambugu is just the guy in front of many other people who are working behind him to ensure that a proposition by the president is taken forward. So he's a guy who is just actually playing to his master.
Okay, Honorable Wangare, your take on this, part of a wider scheme? Were you, in fact, maybe I could start by asking, were you aware that he was going to go to the Judicial Service Commission?
I wouldn't say I was aware, and I think from face value, he has already alluded that he's working as Gunjiri Wambugu. I think if the party, Jubilee Party, had anything to do with it, if you remember during Dennis Odunga's rulings, the party had made an official position and written to the CJ as a party position. But for this one, I think he's already made it clear, and we must also realize that there is nothing criminal about petitioning JSC at all. Okay. Any Kenyan can do it, and I think it's provided for in the constitution. It's explicit, and it's not the first time it has happened. I think just recently Tom Mboya had already petitioned for a judge to be removed or to be investigated. But you must also prove clearly, what are you talking about? Misconduct? Is it grievous misconduct? Is it something they have done against the constitution? It's not just something you wake up and say, because I don't like such a ruling, then let us remove the CJ. But I think looking at it, it is not a party position. Gunjiri has the right to do it as a person. And I'm also wondering, would it be the same if it was a normal Kenyan and not a member of parliament who had petitioned? I think the reaction would be different. But I think everyone has a constitutional right.
I think the same way you're asking that question is the same way many others are asking. Why is it this particular member of parliament from that party, the Jubilee Party, that has made this move? And why would he make a move without seeking the permission of the party? What you're saying is true. And I want to refer you to page 5 of the Daily Nation, which states, and I quote, Jubilee lawmakers unveil plan to reduce powers of Supreme Court. Why I ask you this is because it's easy to dismiss Honorable Wambugu as working alone, but when you look at this at the headline, then some people can begin to ask questions. Honorable Wangare,
I think
these two things are happening almost simultaneously. Ken, of course, I'll be coming to you shortly.
I think, if you know, Wahiga, even in Jubilee, you have already seen some members already make their comments about this petition. My personal view, as Wangari is that I don't think it is well timed personally, and I don't think it's the right move at this time.
Okay.
But it is not criminal and it is not out of context. Anyone can do it, and Wambogo has the right to do it. And in terms of that other headline, I have not read that story, but I think when you say Jubilee lawmakers, even if you want to reduce, it has to go through Parliament.
Can I read for you?
You don't just
paragraphs?
Yeah, you don't just do it from the street. There's a process that has to be followed. Yeah.
Let me read something here, then I can allow Honorable Cost to weigh in as well, and Senator Kangata. Jubilee members of Parliament and senators, this is on page 5 of The Nation, are planning to trim the powers of the judiciary over the Supreme Court's ruling, which annulled the victory of President Uhuru Kenyatta on the 8th of August. And I skipped down to a few paragraphs further down. The Nation was informed that Jubilee lawmakers who enjoy a majority in both chambers might move against Justice Maraga and the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, Ann Amadi, through a petition they plan to introduce in the House. The plot is to frame the CJ and the Registrar with non-existent charges, then pass the resolution of the House to have them investigated by the EACC, not because the accusations are serious, but to besmirch their character. Of course, this is according to sources. Honorable, of course, I want to also get your take on this. And the question that we're asking, is Honorable Wambugu working alone or part of a wider scheme?
I think Honorable Martha Karua once famously said, if you see a dog barking, look for the owner. Ngujiri is barking. We want to know who is the owner. I do not think Ngujiri is working for himself. The comprehensiveness of that petition, 14 whole pages, and the allegations have some narrative lines that you should watch out for. One of them is the attack against civil society. He's focused on people like Makau Mutua, organizations such as the IDLO. These are things we have to be very careful about as Kenyans going ahead. Under Jubilee government and with this supermajority, will Jubilee be continuing to shrink civil space, threatening individuals? And it's not only the judiciary that's at risk. Also at risk are people such as the Auditor General, Honor Mr. Uko, the Controller of Budget, Agnes. All of these are people who have already been threatened. And it's clear, you know, when you hear people like the leader of majority, now Ngujiri Wambugu, these are people who are speaking from a very clear agenda point, and this was maybe to test the water and then pretend to deny it, but the warning shots have been done, and Kenyans should know that Jubilee has every intention to use its alleged supermajority or near supermajority to change the constitution for things that they are most interested in, to centralize power in the presidency and diminish other institutions. And sadly, parliamentarians within Jubilee are giving up the power of parliament by being so soft and acquiescent and complacent to the wishes of the executive. One day they'll regret it because the executive won't be in their hands, and they'll wish that there was a robust independent parliament and a robust independent judiciary.
Allow me to interrupt you. I'm sure Honorable Wambugu knows how difficult it is to remove a judge of the Supreme Court. Why do you think then he went through this whole process, bearing in mind even members of the Jubilee Party, many of them have disowned his move. There is a process that he must go through for him to achieve that particular end goal. And he also knows the time in which the country is in, where all focus is on the upcoming polls. What does he really stand to gain from all this?
It's not inconsequential. Starting to do such a move, he has power to destabilize. You know, the allegations about the movements of the CJ, I read the whole petition, whether he went to Lithuania, whether he had permission or not, all these things are best to besmirch his character. Even if this process doesn't move far forward, the cloud and the besmirching and the propaganda to start smearing him has started as an agent of people like George Soros. Oh, he wants to work with foreign powers to do a revolution. Well, let me tell you the truth. The Western powers have been very pro-Jubilee. They've been very conservative and concerned about peace and stability in Kenya. And that was their position until after August 8th when they asked NASA to go to court. There's no way that the West has suddenly changed turns and loves the opposition and wants to do regime change in Kenya.
So
we know they don't.
Merit.
So this is just an attempt to weaken the judiciary, and it goes in with the paragraph that you've just read on the rest of the plan by the other Jubilee MPs and senators to make sure that you go ahead and have these people investigated on allegations so that they're suspended, they have files, and they're going in and out of the door of the Integrity Center and looking like criminals. once you start putting the CJ in that frame and that place, it's harassment and it's a way to diminish their stature as a head of a branch of government.
Let me allow Senator Kangata now to respond to some of the thoughts you have about what the bigger plan is. Senator Kangata, your take. First of all, do you support Honorable Mbugu and his petition?
No, I don't. Reason being that first and foremost, such kind of a move, if you're a member of parliament from the Jubilee side, you need to consult the party. It's very clear that the party was not consulted. Tuju made a statement, and that statement is very clear to each and every member of the Jubilee coalition. Well, it is true, it does raise some pertinent issues that need to be investigated, but on the other hand, it goes without saying that there's no way you can remove a CJ anytime from between now and the elections. I think we are all concentrating in ensuring President Uhuru Kenyatta is re-elected. We do not want side shows. We should put all our energy and efforts towards that goal, and to me what he has done is merely introducing side shows.
Because I'm sure you've had a chance to interact with him, well, what do you think was his reasoning? You've said merely to introduce sideshows, but what is he hoping for by this, as much as you say that the party doesn't support him?
I don't know. I did text him yesterday. He's not replied to my text. Yes, it is true. Yes, personally I made an effort to contact him, but he didn't reply to my text, because the question which I posed to him was, did you receive any sanction from the top brass of our party? There was no reply, so I can't tell. From where I sit, I know young and newly elected members of parliament tend to get excited once they come into office. They turn cantankerous. I know there is every likelihood that may be his real intention, but from where I sit, I have no reason or explanation as to why he did this.
Okay, you have no reason or explanation as to why he did this.
Waiga, can I give you a point there?
Briefly, because I need to bring Honorable Baya in.
We have to ask the story of Ngunjiri and his relationship with the ICC. I raise this because in his 14-page petition against the CJ, a lot of issues come back again, attacking civil society and ICC. And Ngunjiri has been two-faced about the ICC. At first, he was very pro-ICC. You will remember Ngunjiri was a personal assistant to Prime Minister Raila Odinga in his office. He was a key head in the CORD Secretariat presidential campaign. Even when we launched, the campaign manifesto, he provided the flower girl. But be that as it may, he was always very pro-ICC. At a certain point in the last few years, Ngunjiri changes his position on the ICC. Immediately after the Supreme Court ruling of 2013, and he sees that the government is Jubilee and power has gone one way, he jumps away from CORD, he jumps away from the office of our party leader Raila Odinga and goes into KANU and TNA and something, and now reinvents himself as the most anti-ICC person. But I think, again, that narrative maybe he's trying to cover up and prove to Jubilee people he's
can I comment?
But he's also a public writer. His writings are in public record. He's a columnist at the Star. We've read over the last 6-7 years all he has written on the ICC, and there has been a change. He was pro-ICC, then anti-ICC.
Senator,
let me allow when the dog barks, you have to ask who's the owner. He started when he went to be anti-ICC, he became what were known as the pro-government NGOs, and were funded by the Jubilee government.
Honorable I'll interrupt you because you've made your point. Senator, I'm coming to you. Honorable Baya, let me allow you to weigh in on this as well.
You see what the Jubilee party is doing is trying to look at a Bosch tech scheme. You see that this is something that I planned, but when they brought it out there, it has failed really to get what they wanted. If you look at what the Secretary General Tuju is saying, is disowning something that, but when you go into the petition, I've read the 14 pages, if you go into the petition, you realize that there is a line of thought and a narrative that is very clear that this is very clearly a party-sponsored the document.
In what ways? Because
it delves a lot into first what has been said by the President, the Deputy President in terms of the ruling. It goes into what has been said before about the ICC. It goes into a lot to say about those, it brings in the Fazul issue.
And the civil society.
And the civil societies that seem to be anti-government and the purge on them. It puts all those things together. And this is a document that has not been assembled by Ngunjiri. It's very clear that there has been a panel, a very powerful team that has put this document.
You don't think
together.
he could have put that together?
You don't think he has the mind to do anything?
The research in that document is
let's allow.
Very intense.
Well, can I comment?
Okay, Senator, now you can respond.
Well, two issues. The issues that has been raised by Gunjiri, some of them are quite pertinent. One of them key. They are quite key. For instance, the issue of the capture of judiciary by the civil society. I think that's something that needs to be investigated, because according to the allegations is that the civil society has been receiving funding from a foundation that is funded by a guy called George Soros. Through that method, they now start funding judiciary, and they put in the so-called researchers who then do the work of researching on part of the judiciary, and through that they can be able to influence judgments.
Now it sounds like you're supporting his petition.
No. The point is, personally, that allegation, from where I sit, I support it 100%.
Why?
That allegation.
Why you get
hold on. No, I support that allegation because I know of several countries, this one particularly poor country, third world, where you find state capture, particularly the judiciary, by the so-called civil societies, and they become purveyors of Western influence of our judicial courts. So you find, for instance, if let's say you support abortion, for instance, or same-sex relationships, so you know very well you cannot take that agenda to the people. It cannot go through parliament, because parliamentarians have to follow what people want. So you use the judiciary to come up with judgments that are going to allow, for instance, same-sex relationships. That has been happening in the entire world, and I foresee such kind of a method, a certain hidden agenda that, for instance, that is going to allow such kind of mediocre values being imposed on our society by judiciary. That's number one. However, for now, the allegations before us don't pertain such kind of things. It pertains specifically the issue of Maraga, and on that score, I don't support that petition, because I strongly believe, number one, we ought not to start fighting judiciary on that account. In any event, to me, from where I sit, that decision was made by several other judges. Why pinpoint on Mr. Maraga alone? And therefore, somehow, when my colleague here starts saying that member of parliament was once associated with COD, I start feeling, hey, can this guy be acting? Yes, you did a mole. Maybe I don't have evidence, but maybe
I need to allow
a mole, for instance. He may be holding brief for these guys to make Jubilee appear bad in certain sections of Kenya. You know how Kenyans perceive their big sons.
So what's your message to him then? Gujiri stop
Honorable Court, I'm the one handling.
No, I don't know. I'm asking a question. You have brought it. Is you who have just said that indeed he used to work with you. So is Mr. Gunjiri holding your brief?
Senator, I need to stop there. Honorable Wangari, please come in. Honorable Wangari, please come into this now. I need to hear your...
Yeah, and I would be just to be very clear on this. You know, the independence of the judiciary is guaranteed in the Constitution. In fact, it is outlined from inside and from outside forces. Nobody should actually be able to direct or control the judiciary. And I think that is not something we can debate. In terms of the merits, because I hear Honorable Court say that even members of parliament, we even plan to overturn the constitution, to change the constitution. That is okay, but do we even have that numbers to change the constitution? 2/3 that is required to change the constitution. Not everything. Some of these things need to go even to the referendum. And if it's about giving independence, of giving up the independence of parliament, we have seen these members boycott parliament sittings from the directions of their party leaders and echelons, because you cannot tell us that you believe we shouldn't bow or we shouldn't listen to our leadership, yet yourselves are not even showing up in parliament to put up your argument. You just come in because you fear losing your seat from the 8 sittings. You sign in, then you sneak out. You know, it is hypocritical. I think in terms of playing the role of parliament, let us focus on it and say we are parliamentarians and we are not controlled by the judiciary or the executive or any other person who is out there. In terms of Ngunjiri wa Mbogwa, I think it's wrong to attack his person, really, as a person, because anyone can do that. Even yourself, you can decide you want to petition the JSC, but it is the JSC to actually now see is there any merit on this petition. We may agree with it or not, but he has filed the petition. Let JSC, if they supposed to be formed the tribunal led by Justin Muturi, who is the Speaker of the National Assembly, let us go ahead and follow the procedure. Do
you agree with Senator Kangata that there are certain clauses within that petition that deserve a second look?
In terms of the merit of the petition, I'll tell you.
Yes,
you know,
go ahead.
The independence of the judiciary must be guaranteed. Even Tomboya, just recently, had petitioned the investigation of Njoki Ndung'u because of misconduct. That was a while ago. Anyone can do, but you must prove the extent of the gross misconduct. That, for me, has to be proved very clearly. In terms of disagreeing with the judgment of Maraga, I mean, everyone, you have the liberty. I do not agree with the judgment, the way it was done by the Supreme Court, but I do not have the power to overturn it. Or if you can only say you don't agree with it.
Do you feel that
the
there are
president
certain international
has said exactly that? Yeah.
Do you feel that there are certain international organizations that have a regime change policy in mind? As
it has been said. I would be very interested to see the investigation, and if it's proven negative, then we are good to go. That tribunal to be formed, let the investigations be thorough. We must be guaranteed that the independence of judiciary is not compromised.
Okay, Honorable Court, now you can respond.
First of all, IDLO, which is again very featured in this petition by Honorable Ngunjiri, the funding that they're using for, so I'm responding to what something Senator Kangata put in on the table. The funding they're using comes from USAID. It does not come from George Soros.
So you know?
Yes, I know. It's in the public domain. It's my job to know things. I don't come to to speak about things I don't know. I come to TV to educate the nation and people like you who don't know. So, USAID is US government money. Trump already called to congratulate Uhuru. To allege that USAID money is being used suddenly under Maraga's leadership to institute regime change in Kenya is poppycock. It doesn't hold water. The fact of the matter is many parts of the Kenyan government, including IEBC, get funding from UNDP, get funding from the European Union, from the governments of Norway, Sweden, places like that. They all contribute in something. The Judicial Training Institute is nothing nefarious the way it's being put up as if it's a think tank for regime change or a center for revolutionary studies and organization. It's a place where people are being taught how to transcribe things, how to write notes, how to improve efficiency in the judiciary, court filing system, and a more efficient judiciary, as has been happening in the last 10 years, is better for justice in Kenya. So I think that is really false to allege that IDLO using USAID money is instituting regime change in Kenya. If that was the case, then Ambassador Amina should summon Bob Godek and declare him persona non grata and kick him out of the country. Jubilee still has the instruments of power to make sure that the country is not undermined in its sovereignty. Number two, I did not attack Ngunjiri's person. I said Ngunjiri's positions are known and they have evolved from the time he was in court and he was pro-ICC to the time he switched party and allegiances and has since been rewarded with his hawkishness as anti-ICC. We know for sure the government of Kenya paid for him to go to the status conferences at The Hague for against ICC as a pro-government NGO. That and other organizations, they were funded. So
I will ask you to limit discussions around him. I mean, primarily because he's also not here to defend himself.
He put himself on the headlines. We will talk about him. You know, number two is Honorable Kangata did say that there is an infiltration of our judiciary to change its philosophies, to become westernized or liberal. You know, Honorable Kangata and I believe we're both good Catholics and we share good positions on many of these things. The most liberal judges on that Supreme Court would be people like Njoki Ndung'u. You know, if you talk about issues such as gay rights, if you talk about issues such as abortion, you would not be thinking about Justice Maraga. So I think we also need a consistency if we're going to engage the judiciary and the philosophy of our judges and say, we believe in these things. What should our judges believe in Kenya? How should they run their judicial things? Those are worthy debates, but let's be consistent about it.
Let me allow Senator Kangata now to respond to your accusation. Let's be consistent. Senator Kangata is what you're being told. How would you respond to that?
Well, the point is, it is true. It is true. When you look at that bench, the Supreme Court, that lady appears to be the most liberal. Well, I can say that based on a certain conference where she is alleged to have given judges a certain directions when it comes to deciding certain matters. Be that as it may, I also know Justice Lenaola persuasion and also Justice Mwilu persuasion also belong to that kind of viewpoint. Personally, I also know for them to move in that direction, at times we can have what we call some influence, which can be quite subtle, and some of the sources, the funding at times can influence judicial leanings of judges, and therefore we need to audit where the money that goes to judiciary comes from. I hope it is what we call government-to-government relationships. If that money comes from, let's say, US government directly to the government of Kenya, fine, but I am not so sure whether it is allowable for a person to fund directly judiciary. From where I sit, I think if you are, for instance, you are Chief Justice in Kenya, you need to talk to the executive, ask the executive to look for donor funding, but not to engage directly with donors. Otherwise, there is every likelihood those donors can influence your thinking, particularly on certain matters. When it comes to recruitment of researchers, it's also a very key aspect of our judicial administration. We need to ask ourselves, how do you recruit these researchers? Do you have an open and competitive process of having these people recruited, or do you have a situation where they are seconded from certain NGOs or civil society?
Why were these issues not raised earlier?
Well,
since the Jubilee Party was very keen to ask NASA go to court if you have any issues with the
to me, that is neither here or there. Whether you raise it now, whether it was not raised, I don't know, 5 years ago, to me is neither here or there. If it is happening, it is something that is wrong. However, from where I sit, I want to reiterate, I do not support the idea that we should be attacking Chief Justice Maraga now. And therefore I want to completely disassociate myself from this petition by my colleague.
Okay. I need to take a break.
Just 1 second. It's a complete political disaster for Jubilee. Now let's forget about the logic of it and the substance of it. Even politically, one day Uhuru is in Nakuru.
You are now advising the honorable cause.
But we have to discuss these issues as a nation. It's a national conversation.
Go ahead.
It's not just for the benefit of Jubilee. It's a benefit for everyone out there. One day Uhuru is hosting, the president is hosting 10,000 delegates from Nyamira and Kisii County to quote them for their support in the October 17th election. The following day, a dog barking loud and clearly is attacking the same Maraga. So, you know, it's like working against yourself.
You know,
so I think the timing is even wrong politically.
You know, if it's wrong politically and it's a disaster for Jubilee, then court should be happy. Why are they? Why are they unhappy? Why are they advising us? And it's again, we are localizing Maraga to be a Kisii. We are localizing Maraga to be a Kisii. He's the Chief Justice. We are the ones localizing him now. Saying now Kisii, Nyamira, it doesn't matter who the president met. It is independent.
You
it is independent.
Will allow her to finish.
The campaigns of the president are not tied on Maraga as a Kisii, and I think he's been very categorical about that. But the moment Honorable Court is pointing out disasters made by Jubilee, then you should be worried. You should be celebrating disasters made by Jubilee.
No, I think really an independent. The president went to Nyamira County to launch some projects, and one of the alleged projects he launched, and we cannot forget our history so soon. Just a few months at the height of the campaign, one of the things we're saying the government of Kenya has delivered to the so-called Kisii nation was a Chief Justice. Nimewaletea Chief Justice. Those are his words. You cannot turn back and disown that. Citizen TV has in their library that clip of the president claiming to the Kisii, grant me support because I have granted your son a job. So here it is. He was launching the Chief Justice as a Jubilee project.
Thank you so much, Honorable Court. I have given you more than enough time to speak. Honorable Bai, I'll come to you on the other side of this break. Time now for a quick break, but thanks to everyone who's talking to us on 2242. I want to remind you of our question of the day, which is Honorable Wambugu working alone, or is he part of a wider scheme to undermine the Supreme Court? Thanks to everyone who's written in to us. Let me read some of your SMSs now. Josephine from Nyeri Town says, Gunjiri has punched where I would have wanted to punch had I had the means. Those are our feelings concerning the events of the 1st of September period. Somebody else here, you don't give us your name, but you say, he is not working alone. It signals what is coming soon. This is the president speaking. Let me read 3 others quickly. Alois from Lower Kabete says, I am sure his move is as per now a self-driven issue. But Tumbachi says the president himself said he will fix Justice Maraga and he has to start, but I can assure Kenyans that Maraga is here. And finally, Solomon Biwot from Eldoret. I believe that Honorable Gunjiri has all the rights to petition the JSC about the Chief Justice removal from office. I fully support this move. Time now for a quick break. You're watching the Newspaper Review live on Citizen TV's Power Breakfast Show. When we return, we were talking about Honorable Mbugu. Unfortunately, he's not here with us in studio to further elaborate on his intention, the origin of his petition, etc. But I have another petition here, a complaint by Honorable Irungu Kangata, who is the Senator Meru County, a complaint on secession agitation made by David D on TV interviews both at Citizen and NTV. We'll be talking about this document and so much more on the other side of this break. You're watching Citizen TV. We'll be right back.